you folks, and welcome to the first video on He Who Airs. So today I am going to be talking you through a little bit about my time as an A-level student and what my advice would be to you if you're going in now, if you're in September or if you're in May, whenever you're watching this and you've got an exam coming up or you're starting your A-levels, it's hopefully going to be a good guide for how to get into the right routine, into the right schedule, and I've got 6 handy tips ahead of you today. Now this is my first video, it may be a bit ropey, and I have done YouTube sort of amateurishly before, but I'm trying to get back into it. I'm going off to uni, so the point of this channel, at least at the start, is to show me and how I adjust to my new life. So here I am at home, the last few weeks of being at home, so I thought I'd look back rather than look forward, and I'm going to provide you my 6 tips. So number 1 is that you need a schedule. You need a good routine, and this shouldn't be too rigorous. It shouldn't be too prescriptive. It's not necessarily, I'm going to do biology at 10 o'clock every Tuesday. That shouldn't be the way you do it, because then you're just going to get a bit obsessive. What the best way to do it is to think of some times of the day that you are going to be able to fit in revision. So say if you've got other commitments, if you've got work, if you've got college, then you just slot in every slot. You create a timetable and you put in the slots where you would be free, and you think, I'm going to do some revision here. Maybe you figure out what you're going to do. Maybe you're going to figure out how you're going to do it. It doesn't really matter. Just figure out when you can do it. And make sure you consistently stick to those time periods of doing it. So just a little bit of background before I continue. I did history and English. So I did history and then I did English literature and English language. I got some A stars. And I think the reason was because I followed these 6 strategies. And with the schedule, I didn't go too over the top. I gave myself breaks. I didn't do stuff every week exactly the same time, but every time I possibly could, say in a lesson when we had a few minutes of thinking time, or every time we had a free period or something, I would try and jot down some notes. I would jot down a lot, and I think that works for everything. So for me and English and history, you could do a wide range of things, but with every subject it's equally applicable. So number 2 is train the brain. I am a creative writer, so that means that I would sit down, I'd write a short story, I'd write a bit of my book, and that would really train my brain. But it depends on what you like to do. I found Seneca and Quizlet really helpful because I could just start off the day by training my mind. I could think, I'm going to set myself on this, and then you can learn some keywords, memorize some stuff. And I think memorizing things is useful because if you read a textbook, you don't want to write out word by word into your notes, this is what it says, but you should sort of paraphrase it, write down some little bits, and then maybe if you memorize some stuff, you have some data there in your mind. You have some thoughts there in your mind. And you've got to twist them from being other people's thoughts, other people's pieces of revision into your own. And Quizlet and Seneca and platforms like that were really helpful because you could do lots of little quizzes, lots of little flashcards and stuff. And that would be perfect because it would get you off on a good start. I'd say that's the way you should start your day. But things like Wordle, I remember, were really helpful because you could start it off and you should give your brain a rest, but you should try to keep it active as much as possible. I certainly did. Number 3 is past paper questions. So we did something really helpful in our college, which was CAP assessments. They were common assessment points. So every term we'd do our own exam, and our teachers were very helpful, and it's good to have good teachers at the end of the day. But you would have an exam style assessment. So you go into a room, you go into your classroom or whatever, and you would sit down and you would do, say, 2 mock exam questions, 2 past paper questions. And then because of that, you get in the mood of it. And then when the exams came along, you weren't too intimidated by it because you'd think, I've done this all before. It may not have been official before, maybe more scary now, but you've done it all before and it was all sorted out. So just get into the habit of sitting down, looking at some past paper questions, especially if you're in English or history or something like that. All the questions will be similar. So you'd have paper 1, question 1 in English language would be text analysis, and basically just do as many of those text analysis questions as you possibly can. Vary your revision, vary what subject you study on. Obviously, if it's something like geography or the sciences where they throw more surprise questions at you, you've got to be a bit more dynamic with this. You can't really prepare for it as well, but you should always go back and every now and again, I'd say every week, make sure you do at least 1 past paper question. Tip 4 is to revise through the entire year. Now, you may be watching this when your exams are coming up and you may be thinking, oh no, I've not properly started my revision yet. But you've got to start revision as early as you possibly can. You've got to get your notes into check and you've got to figure out what you're doing from the beginning. I'd say you should ramp it up as the year goes along. So for me, I started doing a part-time job at Morrison's towards the exam period. So I had a bit more pressure going on when the exams were happening. But because I'd managed to schedule in routine revision sessions, and because I'd kept going about at the same rate through the entire year, and in particular ramping it up when we had those CAP assessment points, I was prepared because I didn't start April thinking I need to start revising now. I've been revising all the way since the beginning. So, and that way you can figure out what revision works for you, because everyone is a different type of learner. I can sit here and tell you this is how you can pass your A levels. But I can't tell you how, really. I cannot tell you what your way of learning is. Some people like listening to things. Some people like copying out notes. Some people like flashcards and mind maps. And that brings me on to my 5th one, is that you need to vary your notes. You need to prepare your notes. I had big binders full of notes with little subcategories. But what helped for me was doing lots of different types of things. So I have here a mind map, which looks really intimidating because there's loads of stuff. But I'd suggest mind maps are great. You start off with a heading in the middle, and then you have lots of spider legs sprouting off the edge, and then you start with the stuff that you already know, the stuff that you can remember off the top of your head. And then you go to your textbook, you get all the keywords and you jot them down. And then you go back to it a week later and then you jot down all of that. You jot down everything you can remember, and hopefully that will include the stuff that you didn't remember last time. Secondly, I would say writing out keywords and then trying to find a definition for them. So going through your textbooks, looking for keyword sections, writing out, say, 30 keywords, and then going away from it for a few minutes, and then coming back about half an hour later and writing down the definitions for those keywords. You may have looked at those when you wrote out the keywords themselves, or you may have tried to remember them. But just write down as many keywords as you can, and that really helped me. I did that about twice a week and with each of my subjects, and it really helped memorize, get a lot of keywords into my head. I'd say getting keywords into your head is a good idea. Annotate everything. Annotate past papers. Annotate any poems or fact files or case studies or anything like that. Just get it all annotated. Get prepared. Get proper folders. Get proper equipment. And highlight whatever you need to. Just make sure it's as colourful as possible, as varied as possible, then your notes will be dandy. Number 5 is mindfulness. Actually, it's number 6. That's it. Number 6 is mindfulness, and it's a key one. So I'd say get in your 5 a day, which is quite a strange thing to suggest, but 5 a day, lots of water, lots of balanced meals, lots of exercise. So I'd suggest, personally, what I would do is I'd sit down for 2 hours, I'd do a lot of work, and then I'd go out for half an hour, I'd go on a nice walk, no matter what the weather was like, and I'd turn my brain off. And then half an hour later, I'd come back, my mind would be fresh, and then I'd do another couple of hours. That is what you need to do. You need to make sure you have some downtime. I'd do as much as I could during college hours, and then if I possibly could, unless it was towards the exam time where you need a bit more revision time, I would just switch off. I'd put the telly on, I'd do some writing, I'd have a bath, I'd just do something I enjoy doing, I'd have some family time. At the weekends, I'd turn my brain off so that in the week I was properly prepared, so that I could properly have this time where I am focused. Obviously, you might have a part-time job, you might have other commitments, but you've got to have some downtime, because then you can properly focus on your study, because then you'll be more committed to it. Otherwise, if you're exhausted, the last thing you're going to want to do is study, let's face it. So those are my tips. I hope I helped out. I know I cannot be too prescriptive with this, because really it does depend on what sort of person you are, what sort of subject you have done. But I'd say apply all these tips, and if you have any questions and anything you want answered, any queries, then please leave them in the comment section below and I will try my best to answer. Now, this channel over the next few weeks and months will follow me in my journey to become a university student. So I'm going to show you how I'm coping with uni life, how I'm adjusting to life as an independent student. I'm going to have vlogs, I'm going to have videos a bit like this where I try to help you out if you're a student yourself. I'm just going to try and get through it, and I'm going to try and get through it with you guys. So please leave your comments below, please like and subscribe, and I will be back another time to air again. And by the way, I am Lewis Air, and that is why I am called He Who Airs.